Alright people, when you watch this video, don't go running out finding the stiffest rod you can find. When I say I'm looking for a rod with balls, that's true, but a rod does have to have some flex. The reason it has to have balls is the upper and lower tooth patch of a catfish. Smaller catfish, the average size catfish, are easy to hook. You hook 90% of them. When they start getting extremely large, and especially on a suspended bite straight below the boat, you will start missing fish because of that tooth patch, using the standard rods that's floating around the market today. Flex is good because if they do get hooked in the corner, I've actually had fish tear a gash in the side of the face that big, and some that pulled loose that probably just pulled it completely out of their side of their mouth. They get hooked in the top or the bottom, that's probably not going to happen. But if they get hooked in the side and you have a rod with no bend, that can happen. That's why we need some bend. Another thing that can happen with a rod that does not bend is head shakes. If he's hooked in the corner, if that rod cannot bend with the head shakes, that hole can get loose, hook get loose. He can spit the hook on you that way from a rod that's too stiff once he's been hooked a while. If I was going to chase big stripers, a 40-pound striper on average is going to pull way harder than a blue catfish. So you'd think you would want a rod with balls there. Not really, because the striper is easy to set a hook in its mouth. The problem with the striper is they do a lot of head shakes. So in that case, I want a more limber rod on striper fishing than I would for monster catfish. I've noticed that with skipjack. They flip, they jump. The more limber my rod is, the easier it is for my rod to move with those head shakes and keep tension on the line. So in the search for the perfect rod with balls, I do want balls. I want extreme lifting power, but with some bend in the rod. Now before I start this video, I just want to say that any rod can catch a fish. These Mad Cat medium actions, they can catch a fish. The medium heavies can catch fish. Those BCF rods, they can catch fish. They can catch big fish. It's been proven they can catch big fish. There's a lot of these in people's hands all across the country. They're dropping baits in the water for catfish all day long in big fish waters. Over the past few years, these rods have accumulated state records under their name. Does that mean they are the best rod to use fishing for large fish? Since I've started using the boat, since I've got more into catfishing, doing a lot of suspend fishing, where there's a different position, that hook is wanting to hit the top of the fish's mouth and not come to the side. Especially flatheads they just want to go straight to the bottom. They don't want to swim away and get that hook to slide into the corner. So you're trying to hook them up in the tooth patch. Using much heavier wire hooks nowadays, it takes more to set that larger diameter hook. On a suspended bite, the farther that rod has to go down before that hook starts to set is going to decrease your chances of setting a hook on an extremely large catfish. Flatheads especially tend to hit a suspended bait and just go right down to the bottom and stay there. If your bait is suspended 2 feet off the bottom and he goes down 2 feet and just sits there, and this rod bends really easy to the 2 foot mark, he's just holding that bait in his mouth. You're not setting that hook. You might fight that fish for 30 seconds, might fight him for a minute, he just lets go. It's happened to me a number of times. Initially I bought a bunch of big cat fever rods for the boat just because they were visible. Very similar to this Mad Cat's medium heavy action. Actually, I would rate this as heavy as a heavy action BCF rod. Probably due to the extra guide, just stiffening up the blank a little more. The actions of the rod were extremely similar. They were built extremely similar. Same type of grips, reel seat, same exact guides, different name. Either way, I I'd gotten the Mad Catz rods, and I've been using them about a year, and I've caught a ton of fish on them. A lot of times I'm dragging for catfish. Sometimes the dragging bite don't work. Sometimes I've noticed a suspended bite is better. There are certain times in the fall when I get my biggest fish fishing at night, suspended baits, certain spots. And what I've noticed is extremely large fish on suspended bites are harder to get a hook set with. A lot of that is due to the hook catching them in the upper part of the mouth. A large catfish has an extremely wide tooth patch. There's nothing but bone, gristle, and small teeth. And you're trying to get that hook to go through that. On a suspended bite, it has a much harder time coming to the corner of the mouth. When you're dragging, the fish a lot of times will swim away from you. Of course, if you're bank fishing, the fish is just about always going to swim away from you. Allows the circle hook to get in the corner of the mouth. On a suspended bite, not so much. Well, I had been losing some monsters suspended, and I started experimenting with hooks, started changing hooks. I was still losing these monsters, and I would make some social media posts about this, and this one guy would always comment, "It's not the hooks, it's not the hooks." He'd done this for a period of a year. We had this conversation, and he's like, "It's the rods, they're way too flexible. You're not getting the hook set through that tooth patch." And you know, I agreed with him, because when I started catfishing, we went to, they didn't have all these catfish rod companies at the time. We went to a saltwater place to buy our rods, and we felt something that was heavy. We thought we were going to catch a large fish. If I'm after a 100-pounder, we grabbed something that felt like it could handle a 100-pounder. We were using saltwater gear at that time. Well, I started looking for heavier action rods. First one I come into was in this Ugly Stik Big Water. I walked in the Big Fish Outfitters one day. I picked this thing up, and it felt light, but yet had a ton of backbone towards the back end. Now, I've been making videos with these. I got one entire video on ugly sticks for big catfish. Still has a sensitive top, but loads fairly fast. You need that rod to load to start setting the hook. I use these rods. The rod is lighter feeling to me than these rods, and a lot of that is to do to these other rods put this heavy metal reel seat on here. I don't like a heavy metal reel seat. Those seats add weight to the rod, and if you're ever used high-end catfish or fishing gear in general, the high-end stuff is usually lighter in weight but yet stronger. You spend $500 on a Japanese-made Daiwa spinning reel, it's going to weigh about half the weight of a Chinese-made Daiwa BG of the same size reel, but yet it's going to be a lot stronger. Same way with high-end rods. You'll pay a lot more for them. You're going to have a lot better action. They're going to be lighter weight. And many of those lighter saltwater rods you buy, they have a simple Fuji graphite reel seat, which is what this rod has. I like that. I fish with this rod, and to be only 7 foot, it does a good job. Now, about the time I was complaining about heavier rods, Matt Knight sent me, I think, 4 of these Mad Cat Heavy Action. Now, at first comparison, they really didn't feel no different to the medium action to me, but once I got them on the water and actually started catching fish with them, they are a different action. And what I mean by different is this here has a more moderate to slower action, meaning the rod bends farther down to the reel seat. And this has a more fast action where the front of the rod bends, but it stops right about this area, and then the rod starts getting real stiff. Doesn't bend near as far down. So that, in a sense, gives this rod more power more hook setting power than this one right here. Now that of course depends on how you are using this rod. The tip on this one is soft and the tip on that one is soft. For suspending large baits off the boat, this is too soft to me. Now for dragging, anchoring in current where the rods are out, going to swim away from you, more likely to get hooked in the corner of the mouth, this rod seems to do well at that. I have fished with both these rods a bit and am quite familiar with them and the action of them. When I first got these Mad Cats, I went out to compare this rod against the Ugly Stik rod, and I caught a couple of fish on each. I was fixing to turn around and got hit. Feels like a good fish. Slow my speed down so I'm not pulling them through a hard current. I see him. Yeah. Fixing to turn around and there it went. Looks like I need to be fishing deeper. He's a pulling. He's close. He's close to done. Yeah, that's a solid fish right there. Solid fish. Come on. Oh, shit. There we go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh. You're gonna have to two-arm that one. All right, y'all, this fish has tore me up trying to get a picture with it. I had to put the grippers on him. He about tore himself up. You're there, boy. That's a solid fish. Yes, sir. On the Mad Catz rod. Yeah, we're gonna put you back. Mean fish. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like I say, you reverse directions and you'll catch something. I've already gotten multiple bites. We missed one over there. I didn't want to pull this direction because you can't see nothing. On the Ugly Stik. Oh shit. You get wound up there. Solid fish. Yeah, that's a solid fish right there. All right. I gotta slow this boat down or I ain't gonna get him in the net. Come on, buddy. Oh, man. He's about the size of that other one, just about. That's a solid fish right there. Yeah. Yes, sir. We'll take it. I did a weight comparison out in the yard. I put both of these rods in a rod holder. The rod holders are the same exact angle, and I put the same amount of weight on these rods. All right, y'all, we got a Mad Catz here, 8-ounce sinker already on it, hook. It's got a slight bend on it. I'm gonna add almost a 3-pound anchor to it. We'll see what kind of bend it gets. I measured the top, and now I'm going to measure the bottom of the bend and do the same with this Ugly Stik over here. Same thing, Ugly Stik Big Water, 8-ounce rig already on it. About the same amount of bend, maybe just a little less in this position. With an 8-ounce sinker Carolina rig and then me adding a 3-pound extra weight to that, the Mad Catz rod in the suspended position dropped 24 inches up on the tip. The Ugly Stik Big Water rod only dropped 17 inches with the same amount of weight. That's 7 inches difference in tip drop, meaning this rod has more balls. This rod too is a fast action like the Mad Catz, so it was a fair comparison. This rod bends somewhat sensitive at the top and then gets really stiff at the bottom. What's interesting is the fact that both of these rods have the same action, and yet the Ugly Stik has more power. The Ugly Stik is actually much smaller in diameter from the top until you get about the bottom, and then they are about the same diameter. So for whatever reason, this blank, even though it is thinner and lighter, is putting out more power than this blank. Comparing other things about the two rods, we'll start with the guides. Both have solid guides. The Mad Catz has the same guides they're putting on all the other Catfish rods out there. This Ugly Stik looks like it could be a pressed-in guide, but it's not. It's a solid guide. Has a very weird design to it. I like the looks and the style of the Mad Catz guide better, but both guides are probably similar in what they do in performance. The color, Mad Catz is making the prettier rods. They got all kind of colors, whatever color you want. Ugly Stik, nothing pretty about it. Just a workhorse. Doesn't even say catfish. Take it to the ocean. Fish for whatever. The grips, which is this, both are EVA. This has a smooth EVA on the Ugly Stik. Mad Catz has a smaller EVA handle with like these grooves in it. I prefer the handle on the Mad Catz rod. A little easier to get your hands wrapped around because it's not so thick, and doesn't seem to want to roll in the rod holder quite as bad. Catches these grooves, so I like the handle better. The reel seats, I like the Ugly Stik better. Much lighter reel seat, not cold on your hands, not as much weight to handle all day long. And as far as which one has more balls, the winner of this test goes to the Ugly Stik Big Water, and this is just rated a medium heavy action. I've caught a number of fish with this Ugly Stik Big Water and a number of fish with the Mad Catz heavy action rod, and I can tell you that the Big Water rod is subduing these fish easier and faster than the Mad Catz rod. The Mad Catz rod is getting them to the boat, but I'm having to work harder.